Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Public Allies. I'm your host for today's roundtable, and my name is Ayesha Sardar. I'm also the Executive Director for Public Allies. And like you know, we have been trying to come up with innovative topics, different topics, which are so important social causes, social issues, and social topics which are important for the society. So today we have climate crisis. Climate change is an existential threat. Is it going to wipe out human race from the face of Earth? Maybe. Think about the future generations. A child born today faces multiple and lifelong health harms from climate change, growing up in a warmer world with risks of food shortages, infectious diseases, floods, and extreme heat. Climate change is harming people's health by increasing the number of extreme weather events and exacerbating air pollution. And if nothing is done to mitigate it, its impact could burden the entire global population and our future generations with disease and illness throughout their lives. So, we at Public Allies realized how important this discussion is, and we put together an expert panel which is passionate about saving Earth. Let's welcome our panelists in alphabetical order. We have, firstly, Kashif Baig. Hi, Kashif. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, Ayesha, thank you for having me.
Kashif is an IT professional with over 20 years of experience. He currently works for DXC Technology Canada with one of Canada's largest banks as his customer. Kashif has also been an active member of Pickering community and has volunteered and participated in various social service initiatives. He is a member of the DRPS Diversity Advisory Committee and the Canada International Council. He's been a member of North York Community House and other such community organizations in India and South Africa. Kashif believes that a community is as healthy as its weakest and most vulnerable members. The best sign of a vibrant and thriving community is when the members of the community feel happy and proud to live there, and a clean and pristine environment is at the core of it. Again, welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have ROMINA KWONG. She is sustainability consultant, environmental expert, and advocate. She helps discouraged, overwhelmed event planners and entrepreneurs to proactively include eco-friendly standards into their businesses so that their business practices are both beneficial to their community and for the planet. She has over 12 years of experience in the hospitality industry and a degree in environmental studies. She brings creative strategies to resolve supply chain management concerns or even while vetting event vendors. She has been featured on the Collective Well podcast, and her signature holistic approach speaks for itself. Welcome, Romina.
Thank you for having me.
Last but not least, we have Sumi Shan. She is the co-founder and the chief strategy officer at Dunia Habitats, a mission-based agri-tech startup, and provides sustainable indoor farming solutions to support local food systems. Sumi is a serial entrepreneur and a former political advisor, candidate, and an award-winning management professional who has worked with tech giants like Microsoft, early-stage startups, governments, and not-for-profits over the last 18 years. She is also the founder and principal consultant at Niche Strategies, a boutique marketing agency, and a board member at Infinite Enviro Solutions, a water purification and waste management company. Being a daughter of a refugee and smallholder farmer, Sumi is a social doer who is keenly interested in advancing innovation to tackle social challenges, supporting more women in leadership and in government. Welcome, Sumi.
Thank you, Aisha. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, if I have forgotten anything to add to your series, go ahead and this is your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. It was a wonderful introduction.
Okay, so let's go ahead, guys. The first thing is we all know what climate crisis is. We all know what climate change is, but still there are a lot of people who don't believe in it or who don't know about it because they're living their life and they're going about it. So tell us, what is climate crisis and environmental changes according to you? And are there any linked to your particular industry or areas of expertise. So let's go again in alphabetical order. Kashif, you go first.
I think there are, as you correctly mentioned, quite a substantial number of people who perhaps would fall in the camp of what we would call as skeptics, or people who have a hard time believing that the climate is indeed changing, or even if they do go as far as admitting that there is a definite shift in the way the climate that we're experiencing is, they have a hard time believing any of this is being caused by humankind, any of this is being caused by the actions that human beings take day in, day out. The only thing that these folks have to do is to open their eyes and see what's happening around us. Look at the extreme drought that is being experienced in many portions of the US as well as in Canada. Look at the water shortages around the world. Look at the number of people who are struggling with extreme weather events. We used to have, we've always had summers and winters. We've had periods where we've had quite a few tornadoes happening. We've had periods we had quite a few storms and cyclones and super cyclones happening. But the variation that we are experiencing today, the extremes that we are experiencing today, has not been seen before. We've had one or two occasions where some of these events have happened in the past, but the frequency with which we will have floods now, or the frequency with which, or the duration of the droughts that we experience now, or the record fall in the water level in the rivers that we experience now, or the amount of snow melt in our polar regions that we see now, has never been seen before. So these are hard facts, hard data that you cannot dispute. You have to know that things are changing. And why things are changing, what could have influenced? A majority of these has been done due to the actions that human beings have undertaken. The amount of deforestation that has taken place, the amount of uber industrialization that has taken place, the amount of pollution that human beings have caused. These are definite factors which have played into what we are experiencing at the moment. The IT industry is quite a large user of, or has a very high energy demand, has high energy demand for running our huge data centers, for cooling them. So we are one of the, even for industries such as Bitcoin, the amount of electricity that's consumed in mining these new crypto coins is huge. So we do have quite a large role to play in trying to make sure we can reduce our footprint and directly contribute into perhaps improving, if not being able to push back and recoup and go back to where we were, but at least play a large role in stabilizing the environment and the situation and the crisis that we are in, at least stabilizing things to a certain extent, so that we are able to have a little bit of breathing room to come up with some sort of a solution with which we can perhaps start tackling things such as how we are able to tackle drought, how are we able to rely more or be able to gather and store enough rainwater, how are we able to replenish our groundwater levels, what we can do to prevent deforestation, what ways we can do to prevent erosion, what ways we can what are the things that we can do to prevent desert creep or expansion of deserts, losing arid or losing our topsoil and more of our land becoming non-agricultural. So if we are able to make even a little bit of dent and allow our scientists, our thinkers, people at the cutting edge of things who are actually looking to come up with solutions and inventions to address this crisis, it will be amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Kashif. Romina, your take on it. What do you think according to you, and what does your industry face, or what are the climate changes connected to your industry?
Well, for me, the climate crisis is like at its core is the rising temperature of the Earth's surface. Like we need a certain amount of heat to keep us alive here on this planet. But as Kashif mentioned, like the rising temperatures because of human beings, and since after World War II, basically, like everything just kind of spiraled, like everything just kept going up and up and up, and we want more and more and more. And for me, it's the large industries that have a huge impact, they're really the driving force. But I also think we play a part as consumers, as individuals, and then also our government as well. And specifically for me in the events industry, I'm sure all of you have been to an event, you've hosted an event, whether it was your own birthday party, a music festival, a conference, then I don't know if any of you have actually seen behind the scenes. So after the event's over, every beautiful thing you've ever seen is torn down instantly. And most of the time it's thrown in the trash. Like when you see event sponsorship, like all those logos, if they're not going to be the same sponsors for the following year, you got to get a new one. And those things, A, aren't cheap, and B, it gets so heartbreaking after 2-3 days, it's thrown into the garbage. And even when we think of things like plastic and things that we use every day, and we're like, oh, it's recyclable, like that's not the solution. So the recycling industry is a business, just like the tech industry, just like farming, like everything else. Everything is a business, and people just want to make more and more money. And the problem, I think, is really all of our mindsets of wanting more and more things. Like, do you need 10 pairs of glasses? Probably not. Do you want them? Of course. You want to match different styles, different whatever. And same thing with events. You want to make it bigger and better. You want to wow your audience and that sort of thing. So for me, like that's at its core, is we need that mindset shift of we don't need more and more. We have everything that we can possibly want. Not everybody, obviously, but a lot of us, especially here in North America, have the things that we need to get by. And we don't need to buy one thing and throw it away. It's about reusing and extending the life of those issues. So that's my take on it. And yeah.
Thanks, Romina. That is so true. We have to change our perception on reusing and reusing the materials. Sometimes, there are stereotypes attached to that, like you cannot use your, it's cheap to use again and again. It's okay to buy cheap plastics, but it is not okay to reuse. Seriously. So yeah, there are different takes. Sumi, go ahead.
Hey, Ayesha. So, I mean, I think Kashif and Romina have like really, articulated what the climate crisis is, and I think we all agree that we are certainly facing it in the agricultural sector. It's definitely changing and shifting the sort of the ideal growing conditions. Definitely here in Canada, but I think it's much more pronounced in countries that are south of the equator. It's, farmers find it hard enough as it is to constantly grow enough food to meet increasing demand. But, with climate change affecting how we grow and all, it just means that it's a harder sort of impact on them. Arable land over the last 40 years, we've lost a third of it globally due to climate change. And if you look at greenhouse emissions, agriculture kind of, I believe it's about a quarter of the greenhouse emission is because of industrial agriculture. But here in Canada, it's like agriculture represents about 12% of its greenhouse emissions as well, right? So what does that mean? Well, for me, coming from a smallholder farming family, 90% of the world is of the 570 million farmers out there are smallholders, and they're already vulnerable. So if you think about seasonal climate change and what does that mean for generations of smallholder farmers, then having to move, potentially leaving their land that they've grown because they're not able to grow and provide for their family, it's certainly a hardship that is faced by many. So what we're doing with Dinya is looking to provide mitigation, sort of like a climate change mitigation for them. So we're not expecting to take over traditional farming, but an opportunity to compensate for some of the losses that they are facing, because with the changing seasons, families are compounded by financial and social inequity and are having to move. So before we see refugees being, there being refugees due to wars. Now we're seeing more of climate refugees, right? If you look at the caravan that's coming up from South America, a lot of those families are leaving their homes because their regions are faced with a large amount of droughts. So they're having to leave and having to look for greener pastures. But what can we do to really to remediate our soil and do all of that stuff? And a lot of that part is looking towards sustainable farming and looking to, as the Kashif and ROMINA have said, to less impact on our environment, so that we can start healing the earth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So true. All of you have put it so well. Like, the climate changes are happening. The high temperature extremes, heavy precipitations, glaciers, snow cover shrinking, and sea ice retreating, seas warming, rising, flooding across the coastline. All these are happening. And why are they happening? It is because of the emissions, like, the greenhouse gases in the air, deforestation, land use changes, and so many other things that humans have brought upon themselves. And humans are adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere at a rate greater than it can be removed by natural processes. So we have to start thinking about it now before it's too late. And you all put it so well. For people who don't know that there is environmental change or climate crisis here, this is how we put it. Like, all these changes that are happening to the earth is not happening just as a coincidence, or even, I would say, even the health issues that are happening, it is all because of the environmental changes around us. So we need to give our planet some rest. We need to relax. We need to calm it down. But is it too late, guys? Do you think we are late?
No,
Anybody?
the planet, I believe, has a very, very good ability to bounce back very, very quickly. The best example of this is the lockdown of last year.
Oh,
We
yeah.
remember when the whole planet went into a lockdown around March, April, how quickly things started to get better.
Yeah.
We saw all those images, right, of the pollution cover, the photographs taken by the satellite, the amount of pollution that used to cover large cities, even like Toronto or, say, New York or San Francisco, where they drive for huge distances. The amount of smoke, the amount of pollution in the sky hovering over these cities vanished without a trace within a week or two. We saw those photographs of those gondola men who were going through those in Venice, who used to drive, who used to navigate those waterways in Venice, right? They took photographs of fish returning,
Yeah.
of the water becoming crystal clear. And that's how quickly the earth has the ability to bounce back. We don't need to go and do anything over to it. We just need to stop poking it. We just need to stop harming it and allow it time. Like Sumi put it very correctly. Allow the earth to heal. The earth has an innate ability. It's seen a lot of destructive species before us, like humans, and it's managed to deal with all of them. And the human beings have tried to push Mother Earth into such a tight corner right now. But given a little bit of chance, the earth has this ability within itself to heal very, very quickly. We've seen evidences where people have established villages, have established towns, have established residences in deep jungles, not just one or two, but huge civilizations. And within a few years of them being abandoned, the earth takes over, the forest cover takes over, and you don't find a trace of that habitation. You don't find a trace of the human beings ever being there. So the earth definitely has this ability. We just need to be able to allow the earth a little bit of room, a little bit of time to rest and relax and recoup, and it will do so. We just need to stop damaging it again and again and again.
So we still have hope.
We
We
still
do.
have hope. And I think, as ROMINA said, it's a mindset change, right? It's we've, over the last several decades, we have become a very commercialized overuse of everything, a need of everything. But when I think about in our area, like, you know, we're focused on food security and there's 800 million people starving, but really we have enough food to go around. And so it's just a mindset change. Like, we don't need everything, as ROMINA said, we don't need the 12 pairs of glasses. And just like that, I mean, if we cut down a little by little, and as Kashif said, you know, give the earth some time to heal, cut down on our emissions, cut down on our overuse and overproduction levels. What do we know? It's never too late, right? I mean, this is unprecedented time for us. So it's not like we can go back and say, this is what's going to happen for us, but at least, you know, we are doing something to mitigate against, a larger disaster.
I like that. You guys still feel there's hope. Okay, going to our next question, ROMINA, this is specifically for you. What is your approach when it comes to combating climate change in your business, like, you know, with your clients in your personal life? How do you do it? Because it's important that everybody does their bit, right?
Definitely.
So how do you do it?
So like I mentioned before, we all play a part, especially as business owners, to do things more mindfully and thinking of the environment both inside and out. And then same thing of writing letters to your local counselors, writing letters to large corporations. They need to hear from us. Like a prime example I like using is the vegan movement of, you went to a restaurant and there was no vegan options for a long time. And then all of a sudden, every single restaurant has a vegan option. So once businesses and corporations know that we're demanding change as consumers, they will change. They know where the money is, they're going to follow it. So that's one thing, is as a consumer. But in my business, I'm doing one thing at a time. Same thing with my life. You can't change everything all at once. A, it's just impossible. And B, it gets expensive. So look around and start with one thing. Especially this month for Plastic Free July, with that campaign going on from the Plastic Free Foundation from Australia, is taking one object and saying, okay, like, what can I do about it? And can I turn this into a lifelong habit? Same thing is how I approach with events and with working with businesses is, what is one thing we can change in the event to make it greener? So for example, a lot of festivals have now started getting rid of plastic water bottles and having refill stations. So you're thinking, okay, it's only one plastic water bottle, but think about the thousands of people that attend a festival, right? That's thousands of water bottles. And generally they have more than one water bottle because you're there for hours at a time. So think of literally thousands and thousands of plastic water bottles that we diverted from the landfill because we used a reusable option. So it's thinking of things like that, one thing at a time, especially if it's an annual event. Then let's do one or two things this year. Let's do a few more things the following year. And also share that with your attendees, because a lot of people know about climate change. They want to do something about it, but it's hard to make those decisions if you're not in it, right? So that's one thing that I encourage, is picking one thing at a time and making those gradual changes until it becomes a lifestyle.
Amazing. That's really nice. Maybe, you know, we will start the No Plastic Month at Public Allies too. That'll be fun.
Yes. Just one thing for everybody
Just
to
one
try.
thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I agree. Okay. Sumi, this is for you. So why do we need sustainable farming practices? And what are you looking to achieve with Dunya?
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think we're quite aware with, you know, a third of our arable land being lost, and intensive farming really taking a toll on the land. And the fact that I think if you think about it, we've got, by 2015, I think a third of the population is going to be in urban areas. Like we're looking at 9 billion people, I think, at that one point. So we need to ensure that we are building sustainable practices to ensure that we continue to have our food systems. At the end of the day, we all need to eat, and to ensure that we have nutritious produce available. That is as a key component for us, and having to be able to have more localized food systems. A lot of the times, the greenhouse emissions that we see in agriculture is also through the sort of the transportation, the food miles that are caused by the transporting of food or importing of food into our communities. Quite a bit of the food and the produce that we buy here in Canada come from south of the border. So what can we do to really strengthen our local food system, increase our crop production locally? And also, for us, it's very important that we don't use pesticides, because fertilizers also take a toll on our soil. And in our strive to continue have that mass crop production, especially by larger corporations, we continue to use, fertilizers to have that high yield and so forth. But I think what we've seen, if anything that we've seen in the last year with COVID, is that, consumers are demanding more locally produced produce, fresh, nutritious, no pesticides. I think because people are mindful of what they're eating, and the part is also being mindful of where you're getting your food from, right? So supporting our local farmers is, I think, is definitely very important, no matter where you are, because we're building ecosystems and we're building economies, and for our farmers to be able to have livelihood options, we need to be able to buy from them. So certainly having a sustainable ecosystem is important. Sustainable farming practices, help us nourish and replenish the soil. You can save energy. So, that was one of our key things when we were building Dunya, is to ensure that we're providing a mitigation option for those that are facing climate change, but we can grow produce, high yields, but without pesticide, without taxing too much resources. So we use hydroponic farming. So you're using literally 90% less water and land, right? So we can grow on rooftops or in parking lots or in abandoned factories or abandoned malls, right? You can put it anywhere, and understanding that you can grow food and you don't have to overtax land, helping by doing some sort of like indoor farming and greenhouses. There's an opportunity for us to let the land rest, provides crop resiliency, diversity options, but most importantly for us, it's like really supporting local communities and the local food supply systems, right? So locating farms or growing operations close to where folks are,
We lost Sumi there.
I thought it was just me.
No, I think, yeah, until she
No, I think
comes.
what you were saying was very, very inspirational, right? The kind of work that Dunia is doing and has a direct bearing on improving things. Like just the fact, if you can reduce the amount of water that you're using, that gives people access to people who've not had, unfortunately, access to good drinking water.
Yeah.
Like for all the different folks within our own province who unfortunately still today are under boil water advisories. So it allows us to gives us more options, more access to a lot more water that we could share, and having the ability to install farms within the community, like in a multi-level car park, and grow it there, right within the community, and being able to distribute fresh, locally grown produce amongst your neighbors. It's a wonderful thing. I think we have Sumi. Sorry, Sumi, I was talking about you, and I saw you.
No, wait. My apologies. My Wi-Fi is
No, happens.
not,
Technical issues always
working.
happen. It's fine. Continue, Sumi.
No, I think, as I said, it's really what Kashif was talking about as I came back on, is that, sustainable farming practices could mean many things, but, for Adunya, we're really looking to kind of strengthen local food systems, because I think what we've seen with COVID and everything, with border closures and so forth, and not being able to get produce from across the border, in a short time we could be faced with food insecurity, right? So we need to kind of mitigate against that as well. But in the context of the conversation around climate change, having sustainable farming practices allows us to ensure that we can still continue to grow for generations.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like both of you were saying, you and Kashif, I'm just echoing what you said. The surface and groundwater supplies are like stressed already. And I was, I think a few days ago, I was watching a documentary where they said the US is going through droughts, and they're asking their residents to not have lawns, but have a garden which is more sustainable, which uses less water. And so, you can have more water for agriculture and other purpose, right? So that is also something we have to think about. That is happening in Canada as well. And with Canada's weather, it is so difficult to have year-round farming. So I think what you're talking about is going to be very amazing. Okay, so we move on to Kashif now. So as an environmental advocate and a person engaged in the community, how do you approach climate crisis and help bring the change? Like, we know some of the things that you do, but we want everybody to know about it. Go ahead, Kashif.
No, as I was talking about earlier as well, the community, we see things changing in front of our eyes. We see the bills, our utility bills for cooling going up. We see harsher and harsher winters sometimes. The storms that we face are getting worse in their magnitude. Let's just give you an example. We were discussing in our committee about what we can do, what one single action that we can do right today, and how we can improve things and have a great impact on the environment. There were a lot of ideas bandied about, but one idea which all of us agreed to and which we can do right away is, if each of us can get up, go right now, and reduce the amount of time that we water our lawns by 5 minutes. So I have, we live in a house which is on a corner plot. We have a substantial amount of grass that we grow on our lawn. And we usually used to water it based on the different stages for 1 hour, 10 minutes every alternate day. And I saw this documentary on the internet, which said that the amount of water that we are actually using in a 20-minute interval is equal to approximately 10 showers that a person takes. So multiply that by 3 times. So every day we are using the amount of water that could be used by a person for 30-35 showers. So the first thing I did, I reduced the time interval from a 1 hour 10 minutes. I reduced it to half, 35 minutes. Immediate impact on the environment, isn't it? And imagine that's just me. Seeing me, watching what I did. My neighbor got curious. He asked me what is happening. I said, here's my lawn. It's wonderful. It's green. It's well maintained. It's well nurtured. But what I want to do is I feel I'm over watering it. I don't feel it deserves that. So I'm going to reduce the duration. So I did. I took a drastic step of going from 1 hour 10 minutes to 35 minutes. But we don't need to do that. You can do it from an hour 10 minutes to an hour. You still reduce 10 minutes of water flow, right? Which is huge. And there are people who water their lawns during the day. A lot of water is pumped down to the lawn and is lost to evaporation. Don't do that. Do it late at night after the sun is set, right? It reduces your evaporation, leads to more effective watering of your lawn. And the wonderful thing that Romina said as well, right? The amount of wastage which goes in things like that. So, what at DRPS, what we've decided to do, and some of the other community initiatives that we are involved in, whenever we have a need for banners or flyers, for stuff like that, we are going to use holograms. We are not going to use actual materials to create banners. We're not going to create, we're not going to invest in printing large amount of brochures or stuff like that. We are going to project those images. So we'll find a suitable blank wall. We'll develop the image using a software that we have, and we'll just project the image. Tomorrow, when we want to change the date or when we want to change the message that we're conveying, we just tweak it on our laptop, project a different image. Zero wastage, right? Absolutely no need to go and redo things like that. And we've also tried to, we're trying to work with the local council as well, right? Try to come up with initiatives that can promote things within the community. The multi-level car park thing that I was talking to you about, that's something that's being discussed. Try to identify unused lots or abandoned factories or abandoned, say, apartments or things which are run down or sort of the things of that nature, and try and encourage people to start growing stuff there, food which can be locally grown and which is sheltered. Give them incentives to put in things like the hydroponic systems, and allow opportunities for that produce to be sold to the neighborhood. So these kind of things are having an immediate impact right within the community. People start observing that right away, saying that, hey, we just tweaked one little thing that we are doing, and we see this enormous change, this enormous benefit right within our community. So these are the things that we're trying to do on a bit by bit basis. But I know we have to speed up on those because we don't have a lot of time. We don't have the luxury of being able to do things very, very quietly, very, very slowly, because we need to try and find out things, the things which would have the most immediate impact, which can help our community, which can help the reduce this impact and this threat to the climate change that we represent as a human race.
Yeah. Wonderfully said, all three of you. You know, you are talking about things which we can do in daily lives. Like, you know, when we talk about climate change and environmental changes, how do we mitigate the losses which have already happened or reduce these climate changes or crisis? Everybody talks big, like, you know, we have to do this big, that big, and people get scared about all that. But what you guys are talking about are the simple things which every one of us can do to reduce these environmental changes. So thank you so much, everyone, for putting all of this together. And, you know, I was reading an article and it said, like, you need either to adapt to these environmental changes or you mitigate. So how do you adapt? You get adjusted to the climate conditions that are happening, the changing climate conditions that are happening. And by mitigation, what they mean is you're reducing the amount or speed of the future climate change that is going to happen. But you know, both of these are important because it reduces the risk and it gets you prepared for the changes that are happening. Like, for example, the floods, the forest fires that are happening. It was like, why do we always step up after the forest fires have happened? When you see the weather is so warm, why can you not water those trees before the fires start? Or why don't you take some steps to reduce that fire or stop that fire even before it starts? So these are some of the things which we have to learn and which we have to talk about. So now my next question to all of you is, you spoke about all the little things, but now if you, what would you counsel the governments to do about this? Like, you know, to deal with the threats that are there today, coupled with the actions on the long-term threats. ROMINA, Sumi, you go first.
So in the sort of the agricultural sort of areas, I think there's been a lot of talk about you know, some of the intensive farming and how, you know, we're using pesticides and all of that. But there's a lot of farmers out there that are more than willing to provide more sustainable sort of practices and to help really cut down on emissions, right? So I think there's an opportunity for government to really step in and provide sort of incentives for farmers to help cut down emissions and provide emission targets. I think south of the border, the Biden administration is now putting some money behind it to really support farmers in, you know, providing carbon reduction strategies. the ability to provide a sustainability targets. I think investing in new technology and supporting farmers in purchasing new technology that can help them have a sustainable farming, or the ability to not to have intensive farming as much, right? We are a very seasonal country when it comes to farming, so for several months you've got an intense sort of a session of farming, and then a lot of farmers are off season. Farmers don't have the ability to farm because they may not have a greenhouse system. So what can we do to support such farmers in looking at alternatives? So there's quite a bit of, I think, opportunities. There's an organization called Farmers for Climate Solutions that are really looking at providing policies and solutions for the farming community, and to work with the government, because a lot of the times people, when they think of agriculture and they think, climate change and environmental advocacy may not go together, but a lot of farmers are looking towards how do we, because at the end of the day, if not, it's the right thing to do to support our earth and to ensure our livelihoods. But at the end of the day, for it's providing generational opportunities for their families, and it's also a bottom line for them, right? It's like, if you over deplete and over farm your farm, what are you going to do when you can no longer farm, right? So there's a couple of things. Certainly, I think government can do that's a lot more to provide incentives to really support sustainable farming practices and really cut down on carbon.
I agree on that. Like, you just need that support, and the farmers, I think, are going to be very happy if the government does that. For sure.
In
Okay.
this as well, right? I think the key words is incentive and investment. So if you give sufficient incentives to people who are actually in the process of developing tools and techniques and methodologies on how to cut down, like for example, carbon capture, which is coming up by leaps and bounds now. The ability to sequester.
Okay. Kashif froze. All right. Romina, you want to go?
Sure. I think the agriculture, Sumi's domain, so I'm going to leave that with her. But with me and events specifically, I think a lot of the times in events, especially like festivals, it's all single-use things. So again, going back to the mindset that needs to shift. And if it doesn't shift, or maybe it doesn't work for that particular event, a lot of events are now turning to compostable materials. First, there's a huge difference between compostable and biodegradable. They are not the same thing. Compostable materials means that it will break down within a few weeks or months. And biodegradable means that it will break down for like anything, and like any device you're watching this on right now is technically biodegradable. And so that's a huge thing that I want everyone to kind of take away from this, is that compostable and biodegradable are not the same thing. And it doesn't mean that things will just break down when they're left outside. They need the right conditions, the right amount of oxygen and heat. And so my thing with the government, and what I recommend to Trudeau, especially because he wants to ban single-use plastics by the end of this year, which is less than 6 months from now, which is kind of crazy. It's a great step forward, but my problem with it is that a lot of people are turning to these compostable and biodegradable items, but you can't actually put it into your green bin. So we don't have the infrastructure where governments and waste management companies, like there are private ones that might be able to accept it, but the government ones, most of them don't accept your bamboo toothbrush, your compostable bag, your compostable whatever it is that you find. Like you can't actually throw it into those bins. And so it ends up still going to the landfill. So I would advise not only banning the single-use plastics, but then accommodating this shift to either compostables or reusables with the infrastructure. So we need the infrastructure to back it up in order to really make that change. So that is what my recommendation would be to Trudeau, because I don't know, other than his announcement, I don't believe there's been any other updates about the ban or what's going to be happening next. I don't know how businesses are going to be transitioning, especially if you're like an e-commerce business and you're selling things and shipping things and you're using plastic packaging. And then you see those compostable mailers, like the end user has to throw it in the garbage most of the time unless they have their home composter. And even then, it might not necessarily have the best conditions for it to actually break down. So yes, the government just needs to make that transition, but also then change the infrastructure and back that up in order to really affect change, I think, on their end.
Sorry
Ayesha,
about
you're
that.
just muted.
I said, welcome back, Kashif. Yeah, so true, Romina. And, that is how you start. You just don't say that, we are going to ban plastic. You have to have step-by-step plan how you're going to do it. And you need to convey to the people too, right? Because they're a major part of doing that. If you don't convey, and if you're just saying that, okay, we are going to ban plastic, or, we are going to reduce plastic cover, it's not going to happen. So I agree with you. Yeah, go ahead.
Like everyone who is in Ontario, because we're still slowly opening up, unlike the rest of the world, you see a lot of restaurants and patios where they've switched over to paper straws. And yes, paper is technically compostable, but a lot of restaurants behind the scenes, just like the events, toss it into the garbage. So is it really a better change? Yes, when you think about like at the beginning stages, the raw materials used to make that plastic straw comes from paper or trees, and plastic comes from oil. So yes, at the beginning of its like product life cycle, it is better, but at the end, they're still ending up in the same place. So yes and no, it's like, which is the better of the two evils, I guess.
Yeah, agree. Kashif, you were saying something. Go ahead.
No, my apologies. My internet connection just dropped.
No, technical difficulties, glitches keep happening. We are used to it now, aren't we? So yeah, go ahead, please.
I was talking about the investment that the government needs to encourage in areas which at the moment is not lucrative enough for people to invest in. Let me give you an example, right? Electric vehicles. Not too long ago, it was very, very difficult. It was very, very pricey for people to do any sort of investment in developing the batteries that were required for electric vehicles. But then after a lot of years, after many years of the government encouraging investment, then the government tying up with industries and trying to promote the usage of electric vehicles, trying to get the transport fleet onto the electric platform, encouraging constructions of electric fueling stations, etc. Now we see loads of Teslas on the road, loads of different vehicles on the road, right? It did not happen in the blink of an eye. It took a few years. It took 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of sustained investment and sustained promotion and trying to push in that direction. And now we have the companies themselves, the automobile manufacturing companies themselves declaring that by 2030 or by 2035, we will be a solely electrical vehicle manufacturing organization. We no longer will manufacture the old conventional gasoline or diesel vehicles. So it took a bit of time to do it, but the push at the background was the incentives and the investment that was given by the government. Right? Like, let me give you another example. We have this great Pacific garbage patch, which is there in the Pacific Ocean, right? So there is an attempt going on right now to clean it up, but the amount of money it takes to put in place one of those machines which is able to gather all that garbage and process it and shred it and then transport it back online for refinement or for reuse. It's quite a bit, but it is starting to have an effect. So the government has to slowly allow or encourage more investment to that. Say tax-free incentives for a period of time. Like, for example, for the next 10 years, while you are involved in this cleanup, I allow you tax-free utilize whatever garbage you collect. You process it, you sell it, I'm not going to tax you. Very simple. The government is not shelling out any money on its own. It's just telling you, while you are producing, while you are doing this huge benefit and gain to humanity, I'm not going to levy tax on you. It's just a simple thing the government needs to do. So having this push, having this backing from the government will actually help to accelerate the efforts in trying to come up with solutions to mitigate the damage that we've already caused to this earth. So that's where the government role comes in. Signing up for these wonderful treaties like the Paris Climate Treaty, trying to make sure, trying to promise that, okay, our oil industry is going to be carbon neutral by certain, just those are wonderful goals to set. But we have to stay true to them, and not just in the letter of the law, but in the spirit as well. Like Romina was saying, just don't replace plastic straws by paper straws and throw them into the garbage. Right? Just don't sign up to the treaty to just tom-tom to the world that you are a signatory, but also believe in the spirit of that law and do all it takes. Put in all your might and be known as the individual or the politician or the prime minister or the president on the world, saying that, okay, it was during the tenure of this particular prime minister or this particular president that the tide turned, that we were able to get an upper hand and we pushed back and we were able to take our world back and push down pollution levels and we were able to get back and improve the water availability for our farmers, for our general population. Be known for that, right? That's where the government needs to come in.
Wow. I think we need a new advisory committee for the climate change at the top. And I know 3 names which are going into it. Because, no, seriously, guys, what you're talking about makes so much sense. Like, you're just not giving the plans, or you're like you said, you're just not saying, oh, we need to do this. You have a set plan, like reducing waste in every even that city, the country, the province, anybody does, any party does. We will make Romina the captain of that ship. And then when it comes to farming, we have our own Sumi. And when it comes to policies, Kashif, who better than you? So I think this is wonderful. But again, at the root level, I also believe that, planting more trees, when you cut a tree, plant more trees. That is the simplest thing that all of us can do at our own yards, at our own corners, at our own, I don't know, parks and gardens and everywhere. So what do you guys think about that, planting more trees? Is it enough that Canada has a lot, or do you think Canada can have more?
I think we can never have too much trees, right? At the end of the day, and so I definitely agree. I mean, I think there's a number of initiatives across the country to plant more trees, and we can always do our own efforts to support that. At the end of the day, the trees help with the carbon recycle and everything else.
Absolutely.
And we need to have oxygen to breathe, so it all goes hand in hand. So I mean, that's the one thing about us on this earth, is that we're all connected, and I think we need to understand that we are all connected. And what we do to yes, we have these imaginary borders and everything, but how we industrialize here in North America, it can have a butterfly effect somewhere else. So keeping in that mind and understanding and being mindful of that, I think certainly is important. And so I definitely agree. I'm aligned with you. We need more trees.
I think something that I want to point out is a lot of organizations now support other like nonprofits or other organizations that say, we'll plant a tree for every purchase, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to be let everyone to be more mindful of that, what organization you're supporting, who's actually doing the tree planting. Only because some of them are very greenwashing. They will just be in a helicopter and drop seeds and call that planting a tree. And
Wow.
you can't just plant, that doesn't just sprout and become a tree. That's not like what we learned in elementary school. That's not how it works. You need to actually tend and care for it to grow. And so I want everyone to be more mindful of that, of if you are a business owner and you are supporting an organization who does that, is ask those questions. Like, are you getting the local communities to take care of the trees? And are you planting trees that actually belong in that area? So you're not bringing invasive species, or you're not planting a maple tree in Africa. You know what I mean? You want to make sure it makes sense
Yeah.
And getting those local communities involved, because then it's like employment and boosting their economy as well. And I think something to add as well is, oh my God, I just lost the thought. So
It's okay. It's absolutely fine. Happens with me all the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Like Sumi mentioned, we're all so interconnected. Like the smog that you see over Beijing doesn't mean that it just rests over Beijing and doesn't travel anywhere else. That's not how the air or wind works. It goes around the globe. So it affects everyone. And unfortunately, a lot of us in the Western world have actually done the most damage, and all of these more developing countries are experiencing the most damage. So for us, it seems sort of out of sight, out of mind. Like, the literal ocean is on fire south of us. And it's like, well, I don't live near the ocean. So like, do I really think about it? Yes, I'm aware, but I don't think about it as in the same way as maybe people who actually live closer to the ocean, right? So yeah, keeping that in mind, that it's not out of sight, out of mind. We've done the most damage here in the Western world, and we need to be more mindful of that.
Kashif, your thoughts? I have a question after this because you brought it up, Romina. Don't blame me.
No, very, very, very well said by both Sumi and Romina. We really need to be mindful that we shouldn't think that, hey, this particular devastation is happening in this part of the world, and I had absolutely no connection to that, so why should I care? We need to shed that kind of mindset and be aware that every little action that I can take, which is beneficial to my local community, there is going to be a ripple effect of benefit that is going to flow out to individuals and reach those individuals to whom I might not even be remotely connected to. And anything, on the converse side, anything that they do, which is beneficial to them, I am going to reap those benefits down the line too. So we need to be very mindful of the very well put.
So how do you hold them accountable for that? Like you all said, somebody does something like, in another part of the world and it affects somebody else on the reverse part of the world. So how do you hold that country, those individuals accountable for what damage they've done? Because that is so difficult, right?
No, if that particular country is a part of a worldwide treaty or an organization, they can very well be held accountable to it. But trying to extract some sort of or impose some sort of penalty or extract some sort of punishment is the difficult part.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you know that one of the largest polluters in the world is China, right? So we have China producing large amount of pollution. We've seen stories of Shanghai and Beijing being covered in smog, people not being able to go out and things of that nature. But then China retorts saying that, hey, but on a per person basis, North America contributes a lot more than I do. It's just that I have a much larger population, so it's not really affecting me. So I can try and drag them to a central body that they are a signatory to, if they are, right. Any climate treaty, if they are a signatory to, or for example, I can say that, hey, the practices that you are indulging in, your manufacturing practices are harmful. So I can let, if they are, as they are part of an organization such as the ILO, the labor organization. So I can go and say, I can try and impose financial penalties on you for polluting this particular environment. But trying to impose that, trying to extract that, that's the difficult bit, right? You can find the breadcrumbs and you can find the evidence and you can nail the actual source of where the pollution is coming from, or where the bad things are being triggered from. But actually trying to get that or put the particular individuals behind bars or in handcuffs, or trying to extract some sort of impose some sort of fine or penalty, that's the difficult part.
But I guess building on Kashif's point, we as consumers, if we ask the corporations and the businesses that we buy from, that they need to adhere to certain things, and they are of course, as this happens, a lot of companies, their manufacturing is in China or in Southeast Asia, right? It's sort of our needs is then they're meeting those demands, and because of that, there's a lot more pollution because there's a lot more industrialization, manufacturing, and all of that happening. If we on our end are asking the companies that we buy from, and then we would do business with, that they need to adhere to certain sustainable or environmental goals, hopefully that will have a ripple effect and that will make changes. I mean, we've seen it over the years, right? At certain times within our evolutions, different things have changed. So, before in industrialization era, child labor was not something that was frowned upon. And then, people said, no, this is not right. And, that has changed. I mean, have we fully changed it? Definitely not. But I think there are steps towards going to change. And I think that goes to Romina's point earlier in the conversation about you can't just say, no single-use plastic. Let's put behind sort of the measures and the systems and the mechanisms that will ensure that holistically we are working towards one goal. Because if you just say one thing and then you have no infrastructure to support that, then at the end of the day, it's just empty promises.
Yeah, and also to build off of what Kashif said, it's hard because there's no governing body of the world, right? Like there's governing bodies of each country, but how do you hold each country accountable? Like with the Paris Agreement, it's just like, for me, when I hear that in the news, I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of nice, but what are these countries actually doing to get there? Like, how are we meeting these commitments? Because I don't see anything. I'm not hearing about anything. I just hear about more natural disasters. And so that's the problem. And I remember in one of my economics classes, it was like we had this discussion about, yes, currently China and other developing countries are up and coming, and so they're polluting a ton, right? But their argument is, well, Canada and the US and all these other Western countries already did it. Our industrial revolution happened decades ago. Theirs is happening now. And it's just like, well, why are you going to stop us from developing when you've already done it? And so that's where the conflict and arguments come in, is they're right. And to Sumi's point, we're ordering things that are made in India, made in China, made in Sri Lanka. Look at all your clothing. It's not made in Canada unless you specifically found something that was manufactured in Canada. So yeah, everything is interconnected, just like the air we breathe goes around the globe.
Yeah, or maybe ship some of the advances or the new technology that the developed world is able to come up with, have them transferred or move to Canada, move to the actual base of manufacturing, like a Vietnam or a China, where they are able to reduce pollution right at the source. Have some mechanism for that.
Yeah, but who's paying for it? That's the thing, is who's paying for the technology?
Right.
Yeah.
We can sit here and we can talk all night about it, but still the problem remains. So I hope, some of the policymakers really see this and call all of you for more information, or at least take a cue from here and start doing something which actually makes a difference on the grounds, right? So sorry guys, we only have 1 hour to discuss all this. I know that is short, but seriously, a wonderful conversation. So climate change is the defining issue of our time, and we are at the defining moment. I hope everybody understands that, from shifting weather patterns that threaten food production to rising sea levels that increase the risk of catastrophic flooding. The impact of climate change are global in scope and unpredictable in scale. Without drastic actions today, adapting to these impacts in the future will be more difficult and costly. Impacts from climate change are happening now. These impacts extend well beyond an increase in temperature, affecting ecosystems to the communities around the world. The things that we depend upon and value, like water, energy, transportation, wildlife, agriculture, and human health, are experiencing the effects of this climate change. And at this point, I want to bring 2 great myths that we always talk about, it's not going to affect me, and there's nothing that I can do. We all forget that each one of us can make a difference. Talking about why it matters and what solutions we can bring as individuals is very important. And that's what I ask our viewers today, that please make those simple changes in your life, make those simple differences to the climate so our future generations can enjoy the same amazing climate and the same amazing life, which is healthy and happy. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It was a pleasure hearing from all of you. Thanks, Sumi, Romina, and Kashif.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
having us.
Yeah, and for the rest of you, take care and have fun. We'll be coming again next Thursday with Sunita for a different webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.